So Andre, you finally got the chance to play the story DLC for Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle and learn more about it, because up until this point we really didn't know that much. We knew it was coming, we knew it involved DK, but we didn't see any gameplay of it up until this point. And now we know that it's actually called the DK Adventure, which kind of makes a lot of sense. But what did you actually end up thinking about it after your hands-on time for about 2 hours?
Let me tell you, it's way more expansive than I ever imagined. In some ways, it almost feels like a sequel, because you have a largely new cast, being DK and Cranky Kong, or rather, Rabbid Cranky Kong, which is kind of amazing, by the way. And they're joined by Rabbid Peach and, of course, Beepo as well. And by the way, Rabbid Cranky Kong rides around Beepo like a Segway or like a unicycle or something, and it's kind of amazing. So that's a cursor you use now on the world map, and it's just great. Now, the game itself is roughly about 10 hours according to Ubisoft, and in that time, in my 2 hours or so with it, I made it up to the beginning of World 2. So yeah, their estimate seems to be bearing out so far. And I just really thoroughly enjoyed everything about it, whether it was playing as DK and how different he feels, whether it was a humor involving Rabbid Peach and Cranky Kong, with Rabbid Peach annoying Rabbid Cranky Kong constantly, even on the pause menu, where she wants to get a selfie with him and he's not having any of it. It is just great. It has fully, it has, the cutscenes from the main game are here as well. I mean, they're brand new, but it has, the exact same presentation style of the main game, which I unfortunately can't show everyone in the preview because they're not quite finished yet. It really feels like just a truly worthy expansion to the main Mario Rabbids game.
I mean, it sounds way more... you said how expansive it was. I never expected it to have different environments. I always thought it was just going to be, hey, here's this one generic environment that's about as long as, this entire world from the main game, and go from there, and just sort of like, hey, here's an extra world, essentially. But you saying that there's actually 4 different environments to explore, that's really cool and unexpected, and I think will help change it up, especially since if it's only 10 hours, but that means you're not going to be spending as much time in each of those worlds and actually getting a lot more variety than maybe even the main game provided. So that's really cool to see. But before we get into those environments, how the heck did they end up there? When does this take place?
So yeah, this whole setup for the DLC is that it takes place shortly after the end of World 1 in the main game. So as I might recall, at the end of World 1, you took on Rabbid DK, and at the end of the battle, after you won, Rabbid Peach ended up pushing him off like a cliff, and then you have no idea what happened to him. You never see him again, and who knows what happened after that point. The DLC picks up right after that, where you see that he actually survived and he ends up swimming back to the main hub, and he's not happy. He's not happy about how things went down. So he's going around beating up things, and in the process he ends up accidentally activating the washing machine, time machine thing or whatever it is, and it ends up teleporting him, as well as Rabbid Peach and Beepo, to DK's world. And it's here where, of course, the main game takes place, with the 4 environments, which, by the way, are a lagoon and village, the reef, the jungle, as well as a ruins area, which they're keeping under wraps. They wouldn't quite reveal what it is, but I could see through the little silhouette or whatever, it looked like a ruins or a Donkey Kong Country Return style temple or whatever. Anyway, so they end up on DK Island or whatever. And once there, Rabbid DK is going around trying to build up an army to basically get revenge on Rabbid Peach. Because every time he sees her throughout the adventure, he gets very upset. In fact, the first time he sees them again, I think in level 1-2 or something, is really early on, he jumps in the air and just pummels her into the ground with his fist. And all you see is her crown sticking out of the sand. So it has a great sense of humor, and of course Rabbid Peach and Beepo meet up with Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong, and they all work together to stop Rabbid Donkey Kong from taking over the island and building up an army.
The names are get a little confusing after a while, because you gotta say, you say Cranky, but it's actually Rabbid Cranky. You say DK, we gotta team up with DK to defeat DK. It gets a little jumbled.
It's a little confusing, yeah.
A little bit, but speaking of the actual DK, you get to play him finally, and I know there's a lot to him based on what you've told me even before we started recording this. So let's actually talk about his movement options, which actually might be the most exciting part of him, because you were telling me he's just going all over the place. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
He is so fun to play as, largely because of his insane movement options. So in a lot of the stages now, you'll find in the DLC, they have these brand new DK pad style things. I forget exactly what they're called, but they're usually on higher elevations, like on ledges or something, and only DK can use them. But once you go over one, DK will grab a vine and swing across a gap, and you can chain these together to have DK cross like a huge amount of area in a single move. So you can have him go basically from one end of the arena to the other in just a single turn. And along the way though, another big part of DK is he can pick up pretty much anything, and then once he ends his movement, he can throw it at an enemy nearby. So if you want, you can grab like a box full of honey and chuck it at an enemy at the end of your turn, and they'll get stuck from the honey that breaks from the box. Or you can grab an enemy if you want, throw them at another enemy, or you can grab a teammate, I think, and throw them at an enemy if you want. It is nuts. So it is so fun to see DK execute this really elaborate turning setup where he's like crossing vines, grabbing boxes, throwing them at enemies, and just making this really awesome chain reaction that is far beyond any other character in the game.
Is he limited in what he can pick up and throw? Like, is there certain enemies that are just too heavy for him, or can he pick up anybody?
I think it's pretty much anything. I mean, there might be some limits, but in my time, he was able to pick up pretty much anything he wanted. So you'll find boxes, as I mentioned, like all over the levels now, and every one of them is a potential projectile for Donkey Kong. So yeah, you could use it as a shelter if you want, as cover. But why would you do that when you just use it as a projectile and throw it at something?
Yeah, it makes sense to me, especially when you have like the bomb ones. Like, just chuck it at those guys or anything else. That's awesome. So he can throw. Is that his main form of attack, or because you said it was along the way when you were moving? So does he have a normal attack as well?
Yeah, that's not even his main way of attacking. That's just something he can do during his turn. His main way of attacking so DK is also kind of a close range fighter. So he's not focused. He doesn't really even have a gun at all. So his main attack is basically a ground pound, so it only works on enemies immediately around him, but it's pretty powerful. Now he does have another longer range attack as well, being a banana boomerang, and I believe they can hit multiple enemies that, you can only target a single enemy, but it'll hit anyone within its path, I believe. So that can be powerful as well, but it's not as long range as some of the other weapons in the game.
How does it feel? Like, does it feel weird to have such a close range character? I mean, this game is sort of all based around gunplay in a way. And that's just not DK at all, it sounds like. Is it still fun to use him in that way, or does his movement options just sort of make up for it?
Yeah, I mean, it feels a little bit weird, or different, I should say, but once I get used to it, it feels really good. And the two, his short range attacks with his long range movement kind of go hand in hand. Although I should stress the fact that he can't get exactly anywhere he wants to. You still have to work strategically with those DK pads, because they only, again, appear in very limited places, like on ledges, as I mentioned. So your movement is still limited to where those allow you to access, but you can travel a long ways with them. So yeah, it's fun trying to work out how to get to where you want and then who you can attack once you get there. Also, I should mention too, one of his abilities is called a Magnet Groove, where he plays on like the DK bongo set, and he'll pull nearby enemies toward him as well. Usually within range to use the, his ground pound or whatever. So yeah, there's just another option he has to get enemies close enough to attack.
That's awesome. So we have a better idea of exactly how Donkey Kong plays, but of course you said that we also have Rabbid Cranky Kong, which again is just freaking amazing that he's playable again. But how exactly does he play? Does he get in close range too, or does he actually have a gun?
Yeah, so Cranky's a little bit more conventional because he actually has a gun, but he still ends up feeling pretty unique. And by the way, all of his guns take on the form of his cane he uses, and they all transform into a gun, which is pretty great. So one of them like turns into a bat, like a Donkey Kong Country Returns style bat, for instance. So yeah, his main attack is a gun, but he can also throw explosive barrels, which is really fitting now that I think about it, because that's what he did in the original Donkey Kong. He just threw barrels everywhere, right? So yeah, so he feels a little bit more conventional in that sense. But what's also really cool about him is when he jumps off a teammate, he can also shoot enemies during that move, and it doesn't count as an actual attack.
Oh, wow.
So he can effectively attack a couple of times during his turn.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Like, man, I love hearing about how they really did find a way to make these two seem so different from all the characters we had before. But is there anything else about Cranky we should know, or is that about cover what he's able to do?
There's one more thing. He has a new ability called Long Story, where he'll put any nearby enemies to sleep as well, which is super, super useful. So make sure you take advantage of that. Especially for one boss in particular that I'm remembering, that liked to move around a lot, so that sleep came in very useful to keep him in place.
Yeah, exactly. Just hold him in place and then let DK beat the crap out of him.
Exactly.
And I guess actually Rabbid Peach as well, because as you said, she's playable as well. Does she have the same skill tree? Is that transfer over, or are we looking at something different for her?
So Rabbid Peach fundamentally is pretty much the same character, which is kind of nice in a way. So you had that instant level of familiarity with at least one of the characters. But her skill tree is all entirely new. So you'll be upgrading in a different manner, which also, by the way, I should mention, because you're now on DK Island, there's also different collectibles. So instead of coins, you're getting bananas, and instead of whatever, I think it was orbs you used to upgrade your abilities or your skills in the original game, now they're runes. So yeah, just a few tweaks here and there, and there are also puzzle pieces to find as well, which I forget what exactly they do. They unlock bonuses or something.
Yeah, it's just a cool little collectible you can grab. And I'm looking at your notes here, and there's actually one bit of information here that's really cool and honestly makes a lot of sense considering who the composer is. But you recognize that there was actually Donkey Kong 64 island music in the game as well. So how's the music in this new DLC?
Yeah, they brought back Grant Kirkhope, so it's amazing, of course. The original soundtrack was amazing, it's still great, but again, as far as I can tell, it's all new. And the main island theme is the same island theme from Donkey Kong 64. It has the exact same melody parts, so it is so something to bring back memories for anyone who played that game as a kid. It's pretty great.
I like that they took that extra step. Like you said, they replaced the coins with the bananas. They got rid of the whatever you collected for the upgrades, and now it's runes. And I see also here that instead of warp pipes, you now use logs, which I love how they just went whole hog into this and let you be involved in DK Island. It's basically like what if the Rabbids met up with DK and did a Donkey Kong Country spin-off type game rather than Mario.
You kind of totally nailed it right there. It almost feels like DK plus Rabbid. So it really is, it almost feels like a sequel in that sense.
Oh man, it's almost like have rather than Mario plus Rabbids 2, it's blank plus Rabbids from the various Nintendo franchises. So Zelda plus Rabbids,
I want
Metroid
that.
plus Rabbids.
I really want that, by the way. That'd be amazing.
What else did you really notice about this, or is that about cover the main points of what you saw from this DLC? Because as you said, you did get to play a lot of the game.
Yeah, I mean, those are the main points, but I want to stress too that even the objectives are different, or are often different. You still have some of the same ones, like defeat all the enemies, for instance, but the very first mission is one granted, it's been a little while since I played through Mario plus Rabbids, but I don't think they had any mission where you had to defeat enemies and pick up the things they dropped, did they?
I don't remember that.
Okay,
honestly.
I mean, if they didn't, then that's brand new in the very first mission of this DLC, where you have to go grab washing machine parts dropped by rabbits that collected them. Then another brand new objective is in the third level, is where you have to destroy these bad banana bunches. There's these different batches of bad bananas that are powering or are helping to power Rabbid DK, and you need to go around the arena to destroy them all before you can finish the match.
I mean, I like that. I mean, that's one of the things is just find new ways to entertain me. Yeah, it's more content, but it's also give me good content as well. And again, the fact that this is 10 hours long, according to them, that's rather impressive.
It is
for DLC.
I mean, it really is. I mean, and not just for a typical expansion that's reusing a lot of assets or is more modular in nature, where it is just challenges, for instance. This really does feel like a whole separate campaign. So I really had a great time with it. It actually reminded me of how much I enjoyed the original game, and I went back and started playing some of the challenges I didn't finish the first time. So
nice. Now, did you find out whether you have to beat the main campaign in order to access this, or is it always once you buy it, it's just part of it's just part of the hub world and you can access it at any time?
To my understanding, I think you can access it basically at any time. You might have to beat World 1 first. I don't remember for sure. So you might have to beat World 1, but beyond that, I think that's all you have to do.
Yeah. I mean, it would make sense that you have to beat World 1 first, since, why is Rabbid DK so mad at Rabbid Peach?
Exactly, right. You gotta know the full lore of the story.
I know. It's I don't want to be lost. I really don't want to be, but yeah. But yeah, well, any final thoughts on this DK Adventure DLC for Mario plus Rabbids?
I mean, if you like Mario plus Rabbids, I will say there's probably a very, 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 very good chance you'll feel the exact same way, if not better, about the DLC. Granted, I haven't reviewed it yet, so maybe things could possibly change. I'd be shocked if they do, but I've really enjoyed what I played so far. Everything from exploring the island, trying the new puzzles, seeing the humor of Rabbid Peach interact with DK and Rabbid Cranky Kong. Everything about it is top notch. It's fantastic so far. I just really had a great time with it, and I really want to stress too, again, is just how different the main characters feel. I mean, especially DK. That's what really goes a long way in making this feel quite different from the main game. Just how DK moves around, how fun it is to plan out these movement options, which opens up a whole new range of like strategies and techniques. And seeing DK actually execute them is just a blast. I just want to play more of this right now. Like, I wish the event was 10 hours long so I could beat the whole thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, man, that's awesome.
Yep.
But, alright, well, I think that covers it for our Mario plus Rabbids DLC preview. So thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And of course, make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on this DLC and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.